What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to tie the Sculpin variation of this really cool kind of pheasant rump deceiver style fly. Check it out. Got this perfect deer hair sculptable head, pec fins attached right behind the gill flare right here. You got this awesome mottled belly with this belly taper from the Pheasant Rump with a lively marabou back bleeding into a tail for about a perfect 2.5 3 inch low profile sculpin imitation. So I hope you guys watched my previous video, which is this fly. It's really simple, it's really easy, and what's cool is the muddler version is literally the identical pattern but with a muddler head. So if you know how to tie that fly, well then you know how to tie this fly. And the inspiration for this comes from Jason Taylor's Pheasant Rump Deceiver, literally the missing link of my little fly tying tannic water smallmouth arsenal. Thank you, Jason. If you watch this, the pattern's life-changing. Something else to mention, it's kind of a hybrid with Kelly Gallop Smoke Wagon. We have these stacked marabou wings on the back. I'm using pheasant marabou. It's literally coming from the kind of underwings rump area, and it's just all natural marabou that's on the hide itself. Not all hides are going to have a great selection of that. I'm mostly using the hide for the pheasant rump. Now you can buy a rump patch separately, and it's a really nice product, and then you don't have necessarily all this waste. For this sculpin pattern, I am going to use some shoulder feathers to do the pec fin, so you do get some added benefits from having a whole hide. You get the marabou, you get some shoulder feathers, stuff like that. But check this out, I will have some pheasant hides on my website along with the rump patches, and they come in different colors, which is cool. You can get the yellow, natural, and olive, and black. So check those out along with the hooks if you want to tie along. I'm not going to carry everything. And again, if you're a local shop, I highly recommend A, support your local shop, B, get them to carry this stuff, because this is a really cool style fly that's all natural, mottled, perfect tone and color for a natural bait fish, perfect size. It's something that's really missing in my size arsenal. So I'll stop talking, we'll jump in. All you need to tie the whole fly is a cape. If you don't have the cape, you do the rump patch, then you're going to want to pair it with some marabou. You can use any kind of marabou, but I would probably turkey marabou. Strung blood quill is going to be your common, title on the packaging. Strung blood quill marabou will work just fine, and then some deer hair. That's it. So let's check it out and dive in. So I'm coming in. I have a size 4 saltwater streamer hook from Arex Hooks. Nice thick wire predator hook that's going to allow me to fish this for just about everything. And then Danville's monofilament thread in 6 1/1000ths of an inch. And I'm going to leave about enough room to do two spins of deer hair right at the head to make a nice simple muddler head. Now all we need to do is put down a thread base, and then per the previous pattern, we're going to stack some pheasant rump feathers kind of in a deceiver style, and you get this really nice kind of paddle tail. It's a little bit larger than you might want, so again you can substitute the tail for marabou or for some rooster saddle to get a little bit more elegant taper, but the paddle really catches a lot of water and it gives the fly some cool movement. So I'm going to stack some pheasant rump just in a lefties deceiver style tail here. And the only trick to it is make sure your rump feathers are more or less straight shaft. You want a nice level straight shaft. And then I'm going to pair up my lengths and cut them where they're nice and kind of thick back here. So select the length of the feather you want for the length of tail so that you can still get a thick base. Because that thick base is going to allow me to flatten it in my scissors, like so. You can see that sticking out of there. So I have a nice vertical compressed shaft, and then I can pin it literally right to the side of my hook, and I'm not fighting that feather trying to get it vertical. That feather wants to be vertical because I simply pinch that fat shaft with my scissors. You can see I'm using, you can always just catch it and roll it back to the top if you need to. That's what just happened there. And I'm using a good bit of room to make sure those are tied in nice and secured. And then all we're going to do to fill up the shank, and it depends on how long your shank is, right? But we're just going to palmer a pheasant rump, and then we're going to stack a marabou, and then palmer pheasant rump and stack marabou. Now the pheasant rump is going to go from long to medium to short, so that I get a nice kind of conical taper going forward and a nice upturning kind of belly taper to the fly, and I'll show you how we treat the marabou when we get to it. So I'm going to select probably 4 rump hackles here, which are these guys way up here, and start palmering those. So I got 4 of those guys picked out, and I'm going to come and show you how to do the first one. So I'm going to go way back here in my stem till it starts to get a little bit thick and not very flexible, and I'm just going to go to the soft side of that. I'm going to preen off a few feathers so that I got a bare stem exposed. Now I like to figure 8 this, which means I'm going to put it literally, take my thread and cross it over the top, and now my thread's behind the feather, and I'll bring my thread from the back to the front and then lock that in place with some thread turns and maybe a 1/2 inch. Now what this does is it helps that feather to stick out basically 90 degrees from my hook shank, so that when I turn it, it doesn't try to twist and rotate kind of unpredictably. But I can get that so that that feather always wraps concave back, which is kind of just ideal, and it allows me to guarantee that I palmer it clockwise, because I tie clockwise. And so when I catch this clockwise and then add tension, I'm adding tension into the whole system. If you were to palmer a hackle counterclockwise, catch it clockwise, you technically loosen it up. Now it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't quite matter, because as you're going to see, I'm going to tie over all of this with my thread here. And so this is the important thing for durability when you're tying with any sort of hackle like this. But I tie it in, palmer it forward, take my thread all the way back to where it's tied back in, and it's kind of not good looking, but it's 100% durable. It's a very practical way to tie. If you wanted that feather to flare and get a little bit more life, you just put a simple dubbing bump behind it, so as you wrap back, it forces the hackles out, and that's an easy way to build lift. Now all I'm going to do is select probably 3 marabou feathers from down here on the wings, and again, you can use any sort of marabou that you have access to. I just really like this color, but also because it's undyed, it's just ultra wispy. It's super wispy. Now the way I treat the marabou is I don't like to just tie it in on the top like this, because one of the reasons why is all the tips tend to end at the same place, and you get a very flush square edge right there. I don't think looks the best. So I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to preen, literally just pull the marabou fibers off the side of my stem, and then I'll come and do it on the other side. Now this marabou does not need to be long. Like, we're talking like 1 inch of marabou right here, and you don't need a lot, because we're going to do probably 3 or 4 separate stacks depending on your shank length. So I have that preened off, cut all the kind of garbage off, stick that on top. You can just fan it around so it's nice and enveloping over the back there. You can see how short that is, and then just tie it down so it's lashed down. And that's going to give you your back. And as I go forward, those marabou feathers will get a little bit shorter for each stack, so that I have this really nice elegant back. Then we're just going to rinse and repeat. So I just did those last 2 kind of together to make a nice big fat bump right here and ramp that we're going to use to pair some hackle fins, because sculpin have these big meaty pectoral fins, and in fact every bottom dwelling species has these big meaty pectoral fins attached right behind the head. And if you look at their head's kind of like a ramp that goes to big cupped fins, and it's all designed to catch water and push them down to the bottom so they don't have to use any energy. Now we're going to come up here. If this is the head, the kind of neck of the bird, these shoulder feathers are perfect for this, and you want to choose some short ones, because the short ones are going to be quite a bit easier to tie in. I'm just going to rip off 2 of these here, and I'm going to come and try to select them so that the stems are flat if I can, because it's going to make tying in way easier. And then I'm going to take this stem and I'm going to just try to pinch it in my scissors to flatten it, and that should help. Now I'm going to tie it in on top of my thread bump, because that should help kind of absorb the stem. If there's any inconsistency with how the stem is shaped, it should hide it. If you put it straight on that hard steel, right, that steel is going to show every kind of little angle and contour of that feather, and it's going to make it hard to get perfectly paired feathers. Now these feathers are long by most standards. Get right on the side there, and then I'll cinch these bad boys down. Now these feathers are longer by most standards than your probably traditional tines because I'm going for accuracy. One of the things that always bugs me about just about every sculpin pattern I ever see, people always say the fins are a third of the body, but nobody makes them a third of the body. Make them a third of the body, okay? Because that's accurate to the forage. And I'm trying to pick up a feather here. Like if this is my body length, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. It's a third of my body. You see that? It should be a third of the body from attached behind the head. Okay. Now, I had some mono slip down on me here. I just want to seal all that so it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to take one final stack of marabou, really short, really dense, right on top of all this, and then we're just going to do a simple, very simple, not two stack, we're going to spin it I suppose, but a 2-spun deer hair muddler head. And I kind of need a wee bit more marabou. Feel free to use 2 feathers on this last one so that it's nice and thick. I want a legit kind of marabou collar on it. Now because we have these pec fins literally tied in with feathers, I'm not going to put a collar on this head because the collar on most deer hair heads is designed to imitate just that. It's designed to imitate the pec fins. So we kind of already have that need met here. Let me just get a nice short full marabou wing up there. Come back down on my hook shank. So we have that pec fin in the silhouette already taken care of, and so I'm going to just make this quite a bit simpler, and we're just going to do a 2-spun marabou head. Now I wish I had different colored deer hair, but this is what I got. It's olive. It's not perfect to the fly, but we'll make it work. So if you have different deer hair, use it. But what you're looking for is we got a nice clean line. I can see literally the faded line, so I have all uniform hair. It's straight. I'm not going to like this stuff that's curving off to the side. I'm going to try to select nice straight hair that's going to be easy to work with. This is a good length so that I can grab it and manipulate it, and it's not going to fight me. Now all I'm going to do is literally take out a very sparse amount because I want to do this with 2 little stacks. I'm going to cut it off the hide, I'm going to grab the tips, and I'm going to spin my fingers, and that's going to open up the bases and release all the junk. Now I'm going to kind of stack my butts in my hand. Because we're not doing a collar, you don't need a hair packer or a hair stacker. I'm going to cut the tips off, then I'm just going to take this hair, I'm going to lay it on top, I'm going to take a thread path through it, I'm going to match that thread path, and I'm going to match it again. Now right now I have all of this deer hair on top. I'm going to take my thumb, I'm going to shove it around the hook, and then I'm just going to mash it all over the place so that it's uniform. Then I'm going to spin it. And you can see I'm being sloppy. Like look at, nothing's touching anything. My bobbin's just free hanging. I'm not worried about anything. Boom, get a nice spin. The reason why I'm doing that is because if you put it all on top and then you try to spin it, you oftentimes get uneven densities, and I'm not a fan of that. I want a nice uniform dense head. Gonna finger pack that back, add some tension, take another turn through, and you can see I'm pulling on it. It's not rotating. It's physically locked in place. Now I should have enough room to come up here, wiggle my thread through, get it back onto my hook shank, put down a small little base, and then I'm going to get one more spin right up here at the hook eye. And again, these are very, very sparse stacks. This is not like coming in with 3 pencils of hair. This is just enough hair to get my profile on my head. That's basically it. Just enough hair to get a nice profile on the head. Treated that exactly the same. Preen all that back. Get a nice catch, nice catch, nice catch. Push it down and around, pinch it, pinch it, pinch it, pinch it. Look how sloppy and beautiful that is. Cinch it down. I don't really care if I trap some hairs in here. Pack that back just so I can get into my hook eye here. Bring your thread through. Trap it up there. You can build up a nice little thread head. Push that back. Lock in a half hitch so you're safe. And then finger whip. Now I'm going to trim this head kind of the easiest way I can. Let me just pinch this and get all that hair nice and even. But while it's in the vise, I'm going to come in with a razor blade. Now this is kind of like a, a construction style razor blade from Menards. Not ideal, but it'll get the job done. It's just save you some money because you can get like a 50 pack for a few bucks. But just get a nice flat bottom. And the way you want to work a razor blade is you physically want to draw it. If you just push flat on flat, a lot of times that blade will dig in and then slip. But if you just hold it at a slight angle and draw it, you want to use it like a knife. You're trying to cut hair here. You can get a nice, even, flat bottom. And because it's not super dense, it's not like packed on there super tight, you're not going to be able to just trim it all with a razor blade. I find that to be quite difficult. But I just try to get that general flat bottom right there with my razor blade, and then I'll just come up and round this top right here with scissors. Because to me this is almost no different than working with strung fuzzy fiber or tying a bulkhead or doing any sort of bucktail work. Now, it gets a little bit more technical and you got to get a little bit more comfortable. But I'm just going to make a nice wedge that bleeds up into that marabou. And then just for insurance, we're going to come in and put a dab of super glue on that knot just to help lock that in place there. And then you can always take a bodkin, because I'm pretty sloppy with my super glue. Just make sure your hook eye is nice and open. Tying this on a saltwater hook is going to give you a nice big meaty hook eye that you're not going to, accidentally kind of fill in with deer hair. It's a nice open big hook eye. So there you guys have it. This right here is this kind of pheasant rump deceiver smoke wagon muddler hybrid, and it's really cool. You got this perfect deer hair sculptable head, peck fins attached right behind the gill flare right here. You got this awesome mottled belly with this belly taper from the pheasant rump with a lively marabou back bleeding into a tail for about a perfect 2.5–3 inch low profile sculpin imitation. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Give this fly a try. It's not only a silhouette counterpart, but a kind of an action counterpart with this big, meaty head, all of that kind of grip and grab in the water. Not only is it slightly buoyant, it's not super buoyant, right? This is a very lightly spun head, but it's slightly buoyant. It's going to have a great interplay between a sinking line, being able to pull it under and swim and move. But what I love about a head like this is, one, it stalls and it's balanced, right? So it's not going to hit a water column and then dip out of it like a weighted fly would, or even a fly with an epoxy head or something like that. But when it comes into that pocket, that digger hair is going to balance it out with that little bit of buoyancy, so the fly's going to suspend. And then because it has a lot of friction with whatever that water is doing, if that water pulls or pushes or dips or has any sort of anything to it, any sort of nuance, the fly has to follow that nuance because it's ultra lightweight and it has this big friction head, right? And so when you fish this thing cross current, or even if you swing it and all that water push, like, the thing just hunts, it swims, it has the actual behavior of a wounded bait fish in a river, right? So it's just a fun pattern, really simple adaptation, putting deer hair on it, and I hope you guys give it a try and tie some up. Thanks for watching.